Welcome to the Colonizers Holiday Weekend. Let's be totally blasphemous and pull some tarot cards.
That's how I like to do it.
How's that for a YouTube opening?
That.
Okay, we took some notes beforehand just to kind of sort our thoughts. Today, you and I wanted to hop on and continue a discussion we've been having offline and bring it online so people could hear the dialogue and kind of have it normalized.
Yeah.
And the theme is reading for yourself versus reading for others. We have a whole lot of questions around it. We're going to help each other through it because you and I have very different experiences. I've been reading for other people for a long time. I feel like you read for yourself in a way that I miss doing and have gotten disconnected from. So I'm excited to dialogue.
I like that. I like that. And you've seen me randomly like pull cards for people, but it's more of like I'm in the moment and here's the thing, as opposed to like I'm gonna sit down and give you a reading and figuring out how to be more intentional around that and also feel like I'm honoring the thing I'm doing and still making it my own. That's the thing that the perfectionist in me is still fighting with.
I think it's the perfectionism because your first question, I parked it so that I wouldn't forget, is like reading for others. When's the right time to start? And I loved how you were saying before we hit record on the mic, you're like, how long do you fuck around and find out?
Yes, literally. Literally. Because some people are like, oh, just experiment. And it's like, do I have the permission to do that? Because some people take stuff so seriously and they're in their feelings if they feel like you gave them a reading and they're like, wait, what just happened here?
Yeah. My personal take on it is always, and this I have learned just from being over the years. I mean, as intuitive beings, you and I have talked about this so much, like we're always on. So you can be at the grocery store and you're getting intuitive hits about the person in front of you. Or like when you're sitting in a business meeting and the person's spewing their junk at you and you're like, I can see exactly where this comes from. I don't
Run.
I know exactly what happened. Or you get like truly metaphysical, intuitive messages. I mean, it has happened to me before in my corporate career, sitting in a boardroom and having somebody spew junk at me. And I'm like, I don't have a lot of medium experiences. They're just not very consistent for me. And like dead people were talking to me and I was just like, oh God, not right now.
No.
So like that happens all the time. But like the one thing that I have learned, you know, you and I talk about this all the time now about preserving our energy because you can't be depleted. So
yes,
my big thing is like I don't invite someone into my intuitive sphere because in a reading I feel it's very intimate. Like we are in each other's spheres. And I won't invite them in. I won't let them in unless there's kind of been this two-way agreement that that is what we are going to do. And because I have reading clients now, it makes it easier to be like, you have to get a reading from me. And then I've been shifting that even recently, just simply because like with the change in my life and caregiving duties, like I don't have the luxury of really taking a ton of one-on-one appointments anymore. So I've put it into that general reading space of like, this gets broadcasted out as a general reading. But like the people who choose it are clicking and watching it. And like, there's sort of this opt-in, it's a two-way opt-in. And I just find that that prevents me from feeling like the Tropicana orange. The thing.
Okay. So now I have a question that pops up. So we've talked about before the whole piece of asking good questions and how if you're going to do a reading, but you don't have a good question, that could change it. So what, how is it that, how do you formulate the good question to do a reading for a group of people?
I feel like this is where my channeling practice has developed over the years. I think
Okay.
10 years ago, me was not capable of doing that yet.
Okay.
And I feel like it's a skill set that honestly has to be developed. There was a reader that I knew in my Austin years. He read playing cards, and he gave me a reading one time, and he was like, listen, like you're talented at this, you're good at it, but he's like, you haven't figured out a way yet to do this without being depleted. Like the readings aren't giving you back, like you're too much is going out.
Right.
And I remember at the time being like a little insulted because I was like, what do you mean?
What do you
Pay
mean?
me
Yeah.
money for this. And then over the years now, I'm kind of like, oh, I think that there's like, I personally feel like this is a personal opinion. I feel like readers have different rhythms to them that make them really good for delivering general readings. And I think I'm one of those people versus one
Right.
on readings. And while I can do it, because I get depleted so much in a one on one sense, it's harder for me. But I think there are some people, I've met people who are really amazing at it, and it's totally the thing. And then
Right.
and then I think there are people who are more gifted in like the self practice versus doing for others. Like I think there's so many ways that you can, you know, look at that. Um, now
Right.
with our communities, especially like you and I are in the business field, and you know how the communities will gather. I could even see like people being really good in like small settings, like salon settings versus sort of like
Mm-hmm.
thing, you know. Um,
Right.
I see some people who are really brilliant at what they do, and they basically like channel from the stage like a keynote speaker, and they're gifted in that. I think
Okay,
that's
I can see
cool.
that. Well,
Mm-hmm.
because the interesting thing is when you said, the reader was like, you haven't figured out how to not be so depleted. When I hear that, and I'm not you, but on the outside hearing that, I don't hear that you're not good at it or you shouldn't be paid for it or that people should think twice about paying you for it.
Right.
I just hear that you're going to be paid and you're going to do a great job, but you might feel like trash when you're done.
Yes.
And it might limit your capacity of what you can do,
Yes.
which may at that point or in time impact the continuity or quality of it because you are depleted. But
Yeah.
that is not the same as you're not good at this or not good enough or
No. But I do think that there is something really valuable in setting off and doing readings and finding the edges of your maximum.
yes.
The only way to know, like, I know that I can do, well, I would say in this season, two. I think I could handle two in a day. If I'm at my maximum, I could pump out four if I really had to. But like those would be
That's
one
a
on one,
lot.
like full tarot akashic one on one session. But that's a lot of energy. And then if I do say four readings in a day, I'm not doing readings the next day. Like
That's a lot.
there's
No. And so like when I think about the one day where you saw me pulling, and I want to say it was either two people or three people that I pulled cards for in that short amount of time. There's absolutely no way that I had capacity to do anything else, whether I recognied it or not. that was
yeah,
that was
yeah,
nope. Nope.
yeah.
No.
Um, I think like you start to find the edges of your space, which puts the parameters around what you decide to do for you. But the same thing I think is
Yeah.
true of like personal readings. Cause like if I sit with my cards for too long, there comes a point where like my cards start throwing junk. And I think that's less a symptom of like our guides are like, you're done, get out of here. I think it's more like just like like energetically, you're tired. You can't interact with the material anymore.
Well, I think it can be two things at that point because I can have certain days where it's just like how like sometimes you pick up a book and you're like, I can't today. I got nothing here. I cannot absorb this. The same can happen with the cards. Sometimes you're like, I cannot channel nor read anything that is
Yeah.
happening. And so I do think in some ways it is the whole like, no, you can't receive this. And so there is that piece of like, it's all going to look like gobbledygook to you. But to me, that's also going to kind of show up the same as your guides or the ancestors being like, girl, put it down. Both are still telling you stop. enough. And it's not from a place of anything negative. It's just
Yeah.
like the capacity has been hit. You're not going to get anything that's going to benefit you or anybody else at this point. Put it down. Ah, ah, put it
I
down.
think what you said though is so valuable about receiving. I think anybody has to be in a space of I mean, that seems like such a like Captain Obvious statement right now coming out of my mouth, but like you have to be in a state of receiving in order to
You
receive.
do.
Um, but I
You
think
do.
like if I'm reading for somebody else and
Right.
I can tell when somebody's in a state of receiving. And I think one of the harder things is developing the self-awareness and the ego death to know when we ourselves are in a state of
Yeah.
receiving, because this is where, as a reader who has taken on clients, and why I've also reduced the one-on-ones, is like you get people who will like they'll hop from reader to reader to reader. And that's why I don't like having my calendar open for readings. And they're just looking to hear what they want to hear.
Yes.
They're not
So
in a state of receiving.
no, so the book that I'm reading, Will You Give Me a Reading? Um, by Jenna Matlin. That one, there's a lot of those types of things that she calls out. And part of the reason that I appreciate it is because these are the things that when you're reading for somebody else can make you think that it's you.
Yeah.
If you don't kind of, set the stage in the beginning of how it is that you read and how this is going to go and things like that. And as opposed to the person just doing whatever, and then you're frazzled, they're just like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. Or like being clear of like, this is how this is going to go, and them having clear agreements that have been made with you of how this is going to go versus like, oh, this is an assumption and this means. And also that like this, like there's a lot of, I think, specifics that I am kind of becoming aware of in reading this that I didn't think about. And like some people read more for now, some people read more for the future. Some people read more like I'm going to give you the thing that was jumping at me that I'm channeling. Other people are like, I'm only going to read for the cards.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and again, like, so like one of the things in the book, like she gave the example of like just having this like overwhelming thing that you're just like, I have to blurt this out because this is what I'm overwhelmingly seeing, regardless of what I see in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And the person could be like, oh, whatever. And then a month or two later, it's like, oh,
That's
that
happened.
was right.
I've had that happen before. Yeah. I feel
Oh,
like there's still so much popular sort of zeitgeisty kind of attitude around card reading and
yes.
fortune telling. And I always have
Yeah.
my spiel. So actually I like, cause I know you're interested in getting into reading for other people. One of the things that I do no matter what is I give people my spiel if I've never seen them before.
And I appreciated it. I never even thought about it. And I was like, oh,
And I let them
this.
know, I'm like, this is not fortune telling. And I tell them the things that are, pretty standard among most, or well, legit card readers, which is like, if we have a question about something specific and we're asking about, say, a date, like we can try, but time doesn't function the same with this medium. So like you got to take everything with a big grain of salt, and you have a lot of free
Right.
will, and you could use this reading to make a better decision after here and change your mind and change the outcome of everything. So like,
That part.
and
That was
and
a whole
making
nother
sure that
piece.
they're aware of that. And I'm
Right.
always like, this is a dialogue between us. This is
Well,
not
and everything is based on what it is now. That doesn't
yes,
mean that you
exactly.
can't go out and do something else. And now the entire kind of perception of it changes because
Yeah.
now, well, this other thing isn't even feasible anymore, or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
So that's it's been interesting to just kind of process where that comes up, but also where are you really called to not take how somebody else perceives the reading personally.
I think some people, I mean, people are going to perceive it however they want. And I think you kind of know heading into a reading for somebody how they're going to perceive it. And I've seen people change their attitude in the course of a reading before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've had people in the past who, and I feel like this was more in my beginner days because I was just kind of taking whoever wanted a reading. And I would get people come in and they would kind of like test you and test the cards. And first of all, like my attitude and energy doesn't tolerate that kind of bullshit, but so does my guides and counsel. Like they're kind of like,
Gonna say, I feel like, especially like the deck that I pulled for the day, I'm like, you're gonna piss this deck off if you do that. That does not feel like a good idea. I don't know that any of my decks would be happy with that, but
no.
like this deck in particular, I'm like, let's not do that.
Yeah. The rudest question I ever got asked was in a business networking meeting where they asked for like, what's something that people don't know about you? And I was like, all right, I make money from this. And I was like, nights and weekends, I read tarot for clients. And this woman came up to me afterward and she was like, she goes, but are you any good? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your rating? And I was like, and my reply back to her was, on a scale of 1 to 10, how often do people call you rude? Like,
I love you.
I was just like, happy lady, like that is so rude.
Right.
I'm like, if you're not a believer, I have no problem with it, but don't try to get me to convince you because that is not my job.
No,
And I feel like that is precisely
that's a way to, you're trying to get a reading out of me. You're trying to bait me. I'm not playing this game with
like
you.
they want evidence. I think there are people who are craving evidence and I'm just like, but overall in my readings, my job is I never approach it as like, oh, I've got to convince them. So a lot of people who do like
No,
evidentiary based things where they'll try to pull a lot of evidence on things. And I'm like, if the person in front of me is not in the space where they can connect the dots and be like, yeah, I did feel that. Yeah, I admit that, then
right.
then that's going to be a really uncomfortable space between the two of us.
Well, that was another thing. The difference between somebody that is looking for you to prove something to them versus the person that's looking for you to confirm something. It's like I already kind of knew this and I was looking for like those pieces that confirmed it versus it sell me on it. And it's just
Yeah.
like, no.
I have a question for you then, because I feel like in readings for clients, most of them are looking for confirmation.
Hmm.
And it's very healing to get confirmation on things and then to work through, like,
Yes.
articulate through like the solution to something. In your personal reading practice, because you've been doing personal readings a lot more for yourself than I admittedly have been doing for myself for a while. In your personal practice, do you feel like you go into it looking for confirmation?
I try to go into it very open. I go into it from a perspective of I know what I already know. What is it that I don't already know because I'm moving too fast, because I'm not paying attention, because I don't want to see it. So for me it's less about what do I see
Yeah.
versus wanting the cards to give me the narrative of what I know.
Mm,
So like I've had as my little group that I read with most often, it's like, I'm just gonna read me for filth. Like you pull it, and you're like, I already knew that I needed to do XYZ, and you just had to drag me. Okay, fine. You're right. And you kind of start getting this confirmation, or you're just like, ew, why did I get this? And but then you have to really think about it because I don't think that for me, it's not negativity. It's not like this is bad. I am trying to, like, there's no doom or gloom in it. It's more about this is data, it's information because you always have the choice to do what you will or won't do with it. And so it's more about, you know, insight in the intuitive hits of, again, what is the thing that you know that you're not allowing yourself to consciously know? What is the thing that you have just been determined of, like, I knew that this thing really needed to happen and I just really didn't want to, but okay, I know I have to do the thing and trust whatever happens on the other side.
yeah.
So,
I love that you're talking about that because I had parked a note about how to come back to center by reading for yourself. And there's a really great book called Tarot for Troubled Times.
mhm,
And we are definitely in troubled times. I would argue right now. I think a lot of people are having it's a
we've
lot
been
that's
in
going on.
troubled times and
Yeah.
we're just at a whole nother. Oh, I want to point this out before you go into it. And the reason I want to point this out is because I think that there is a difference between coming back to center
Yeah.
or like being present in your body
Mhm.
as opposed to the love and light whitewashing of you only pull if you are centered and calm and at peace and relaxed. And I use the word centered in there because, again, this word is just put in anywhere, like, a damn Lego piece. And I don't think that that's accurate. I think that the
Mhm.
minute we start taking ourselves and our emotion out of it, then we actually might then be so present and calm that we're actually kind of overthinking, possibly,
How about
or we're
embodiment?
seeking. Yes,
It should help us get back into embodiment. And I think when you're feeling quite unhinged is the perfect time to start utilizing your tools, a physical medium
that
that allows
that
you to either come back to your inner knowing, or if that's a real struggle, they come with these handy dandy little booklets. And there's even a whole website called Biddy Tarot. I want to know who does SEO for Biddy Tarot because their SEO is amazing. You type in any card and they're the first result on Google and it's amazing.
Yep,
I'm
I was
like,
gonna
I'm in
say
awe of that. I'm in awe of that.
that is my go-to. Biddy is always my
Same.
go-to,
You can
always.
look it up on your
And
phone. You can, like, I mean,
yep,
it's so easy, right? And
yep.
because you had also parked a question about, like, when do you use a book versus when do you whatever. And I'm like, sometimes if you are in a state where you're like, I am so disembodied and
Mm-hmm.
I am having a true, like, emotional breakdown moment, whatever you want to call it, but like
You mean
basically,
every day right now?
oh God, I know. It's like that.
The
What's that?
disassociation is real right now.
What's that video where the Grinch is in the yoga class just like screaming? And I'm like, oh, this is totally the holiday season for that. Like, right.
Right. Well,
Um,
it's
yeah.
to say it was, and this is where I like largely thank Lindsay Mack and the
Oh,
content that I've
God.
taken in from her, because that was the first time I had ever had anybody be like, you do not need to be this or that. You can pull a card whenever the fuck you feel like it. You can touch your deck whenever you want to. And that level of like, okay, it's not just me. I'm not doing it wrong. I'm not screwing it up. And just, Lindsay really was just like, where your emotions are and just doing this, like, oh, you have to just be in this one way. She's like, absolutely not. Because
No,
honestly, it's just
no.
it's another level of
Privilege.
colonization of right of this tool of like, no, you can only touch it if you do this. And it's like, who
I
told
feel
you
like
that?
yes, it's such a privileged place to operate from, to be like, my life is so
Yes.
serene that I'm in this place where I can channel for you. It gets back into religious paradigm of like, the priest is higher to God than you, so you must come and supplicate yourself in the pews. Like,
Mm.
I am such a big proponent of, you access your cards with as little fanfare as possible. People who overly ritualize on their cards, I'm always very
Yes.
wary of. And I think, like, everyone has their own routines and rituals. And yes, big thumbs up, right?
Hmm.
You should feel as good as you want to feel when you're reading. But if it's like, you have to turn widdershins 10 times and the moon has to be whatever, and then you got to turn on the light the candle and the incense and all the things. And I'm like,
Right.
when are you going to get down to reading when are you going to
The
get
card.
back to you? Because
Well,
you just disconnected yourself from you.
and there's one thing to want to do those. It's another that you won't read if you don't.
That's
That's a
yes.
whole different thing. And so I think that whole piece of, if I don't do it exactly this way, I won't do the thing. That is just like, no, no. And I will always think this, it's a unrelated example, but I feel like it's a good example. I remember being at a trade show for hair and makeup. This was well over 10 years ago. And this particular artist was talking about how she did a lot of traveling weddings. And one of the countries that she was in, she was literally styling
Yeah.
the wedding party's hair, and wherever they were near, there were bombs. Like, places were being bombed. And she kind of looked at the bride. She was like, "Do you want me to stop. She was like, no, just keep going. And so in that moment, she was like, I'm not going to let this other stuff that's happening
Yeah.
impact what I am here for,
Yeah.
especially if you know that a certain level of chaos is going to happen anyway.
Yep.
And you're like, no, 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 I'm still going to do the thing. I'm still going to find the joy. I'm still going to find the message. I'm still going to, follow my whatever that thing is,
Yeah.
regardless of what else is happening around me. And I
Yeah.
think that that's such a poignant message, especially where we are right now,
That is
because
it's the path of the modern mystic.
right. And so if you're not able to do this and do this, meaning read for somebody else, read for yourself, pull a card, touch your deck, if you're not in a perfectly quiet and incensed and moon shining at the right angle room, that's not how that works. And I'm gonna tell you what, there's not a person that I can think of that was connected to tarot or any kind of spirituality that was so precious about things
Yes. The
that they
press.
wouldn't make whatever that they had work. And maybe part of that is the lineage piece, because I'm like, people that were enslaved had to make whatever they had work.
Yes, which is why you have like the change in traditions and different ingredients that are available in literally different parts of the world. So you have to change.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. It's like, oh, I
yeah.
cannot get the exact kind of cloves that I need. It's like, you gonna use that clove or you gonna use this here Florida water or whatever I got.
Oh, I've got one for you. So years ago, I was in a relationship many years ago that was very abusive and toxic. And um we met in a metaphysical community. And yeah, and the great
Oh
we did readings
no.
together for a long time too. And um she was very adamant on having a lot of um specific preciousness around certain things.
Yeah.
And I at
Why
the
does it make
time
me think of Lord of the Rings? Precious.
it is right. Very Sauron. And 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 at the time I had had a like a an individual channeling session that had come to me. One of the things in her, you know, mental health journey was she would get a hair in her and everyone had to get in the car and we would all have to get in the car and drive around the country and go on road trips and we'd just be
Mhm.
gone. And there was one time we were on a road trip and she wanted answers on something. I mean, it was more mental health than it was metaphysical or anything.
Right.
Um, but I'm always in it, and I've known this, for a long time. I don't think I had cards with me. I don't think maybe they were in a suitcase or something. I don't know. But anyways, we're sitting there and I heard clear as a bell from one of my guides, and they were like, girl, you don't need any of this, whatever, whatever, whatever. And they were like, the ritual is within you. I think we'd run out of sage or something. And she was freaking out that like the energy was
Mm.
bad. And the energy was just going to be bad for everybody. And there was so much fear and there was just so much pain in the whole thing. And sometimes, if I genuinely feel like all things for a reason. I know that
Yes.
doesn't always feel good, but I genuinely feel like I got insight to a lot of people who are in pain by being in that relationship and just seeing how much these overly ritualized things perpetuate that fear and keep people really, really stuck from getting
Right.
actual help on things. Um and my guides were like, my dear, you don't need anything. They were like, the ritual is within you. And one of my guides showed me, she's like, if you can get in a still enough position and quiet enough and, literally ground your root chakra down. And she's like, you can visualize all the ingredients that you need to do a spell, to do a cleansing, whatever. And she's like, you know what sage smells like, looks like, feels like. And
Right.
she's like, can you call up the sensory, information? And it highlighted to me, and it was such a growth moment for me personally in my spiritual development, because it was like, how embodied and connected am I to this human existence that I have with the human tools that I have? Because if I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember the feel of like sage leaves in my hand, I am not in a place to do jack shit right now.
Right.
And ever since then, like the whole idea of the ritual is within you has always carried forward with me. And I feel like it helps navigate some of the crazy that's going on right now. I mean, not that days don't get crazy, um
Yeah.
but like nothing could be as crazy as that time period in life. And there was something about the visceral feeling of ingredients like incense or sage and being like, I can conjure that in my mind and it's already with me.
Well, the interesting piece about that too is that that acknowledges that it is not about the item, it's
Yeah.
about the energy.
Yes.
And like, again, like, where are you going with it? And so, if anything, that also puts you in a place of there's less of a drain on Mother Nature to constantly create all these things that you have to have this tactile sensation with, being that you can create all of this. And let's be real, like the tactile is coming from the way that we're processing it in our heads. The
Yes.
whole thing of like you eat with your eyes before
Yeah.
you taste with your mouth. Like
Yeah.
we're leaving senses behind when we now just have the consumerism of no, now I need to go buy this thing or I can't do it.
Yeah. Like I love my rituals and I love my tactile things.
And I love my things, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that I don't. And
Yes. And
like,
also, and
mhm,
also, um, I think like a really interesting thing for people to get into a good reading space for the self would be to ask yourself, if you had none of these physical objects with you, do you feel like you could be present right now? And I think that is a thing. And I think when we
yeah.
get readings from other people, because I enjoy reading from other people too. It's like massage therapists, or probably like getting your hair done, right? Like you're like, can somebody please do mine? You know,
Mhm.
like you
Right.
need the service too.
Right.
And when I am looking for a reader, I don't just jump into readings anymore. I really pay attention to, but is this person, like if they had none of this stuff, can they be in presence with me right now? And if the answer is shaky or no, it's like that I'm not getting a reading from you. Like I don't care how cool you
Yeah.
seem or how good like your readings do seem, but if it's clear that you're not, like the gift is there, but like just
Right.
because there's a gift there doesn't mean that the timing is right for me, because there's a two-way
Yeah.
energy exchange that's going to happen, and I am not a battery.
Yeah. So, girl, say it again. That. So, I have someone that a lot of people that I knew had readings with and raved about this person.
Yeah.
And I have only actually, I mean, like I'm not gonna say nobody's like never pulled cards for me, but I've actually only had a reading once.
Really?
Once.
Oh, this is
And
this is like unexpected. I feel like this is like the gem of our recording. I'm like, what? I've never heard this. Sorry.
one and the spread that she pulled for me had, gosh, I want to say that spread had, I mean, it was at least, I want to say she pulled like 12, 15 cards or something. It was a lot of cards in this
Yeah.
spread. Um, and what happened was is it took me years after even knowing who this person was to finally hit that point where I was like, I need a reading. And I knew when I needed it and I needed it right then and there. And it just so that, I mean, it fell into place like immediately.
Yeah.
And I remember showing up and I was nervous because I just didn't know. And not only did this person give me a phenomenal reading,
Yeah.
but also she took so much time to explain what the cards were. She's like, I'm actually going to give you a crash course. These numbers, this is what these mean. That, like, she actually like educated me. And I'm like, oh, you do this and you're giving me I was ferociously writing. And I felt present and honored in a way that I didn't expect to.
Yeah.
And so there's a part of me that's like, you know, I know that this isn't the typical reading necessarily.
Yeah.
Um, this was a moment of me being gifted exactly what I needed.
Oh, I love that.
because I got education, I got a level of comfort, I was witnessed. Um, there was a lot of transparency and sharing around identity that I felt like was really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, but also there was just a lot of like there were messages like, you know, you can't shake everybody's hand. That just stuck with me. And so there was that reading and that kind of moment and how that was um gonna kind of take me into like the year ahead because it was at the end of the year. But that message also stuck with me because I can be prone to wanting to shake all the hands.
Yeah. I feel like
So
I feel like each reading is its own capsule that gives you something that
it sticks.
you can't
It
have
sticks.
everything all at once. Like there's a nugget that you need. And
Yeah.
and maybe you
Yeah.
do spend 59 out of the 60 minutes looking for the 1 minute with the nugget. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing.
No. And I didn't have anything to compare it to, which means I didn't have any expectation.
That's good.
And so I was just very open and there was at no point that I was just like, well, what was that? That doesn't make any sense. And that was a also a great experiment in recognizing that a reading is not built to lay everything out in a way where every single thing makes sense right now. And that happens even when I read for myself. Sometimes you're going to go and do the dishes or a couple days later and be like, "Oh, that was what that meant." Okay,
Yeah.
noted. And I don't know if people always show up with that level of permission giving for themselves or the reader because they're assuming they're going to sit and you're going to tell them all the things and it's going to be laid out with a pretty little bow. And I'm like, well, that's
Mhm.
not life. So why are we showing up to the tarot expecting that? You expecting this deck of cards to
Mhm.
do more than what you've been able to figure out for yourself in however many years that you've been on this earth in this body? That's asking for a lot, baby.
Let me tell you, this is why I shifted away from giving regular style readings, which always focus on love or money. I'm like, if you have to come to me for a reading, like you're picking daisies, like he loves me not. I'm like, let me just tell you something. You don't need cards for the answer. Like, I'm just gonna
That's
break a real hard
the
one.
thing. I think
And
that
and
part.
yeah, and when I meshed it with the business services, it became a
Right,
dialogue and it moved into like the coaching space. And there was something really
right.
beautiful in that. But yeah, I just think like if somebody's just looking for, or you yourself are just looking for, I just want to know. We all have those
No,
moments. It's like part of being human. And it's like you can't put that expectation on yourself, on a deck of tarot cards, on another reader. Like that's
no. That's
I think
control.
it's control, and it's also like you not growing and developing and going through a growth lesson. You're probably avoiding something that you need to do, and you know exactly what you need to do.
That. And so this is where for me, I'll also say that I don't think that I would want to do readings on like love or money or that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Like, because it's just like, number one, the minute that love comes up, there's often at least one additional person in this equation. I don't know this person. I only know what you're telling me.
Exactly.
And I personally don't want to read for people that aren't there. But
Yeah.
also, like, a no, just no.
Can we talk about the ethics for a minute? Because the not reading for people who aren't there is a huge thing. Like it's one thing to tap into the energy of where somebody brushes up on the person in front of you. That's one thing. But in my Akashic Records training, learning and training, we were always advised, like, unless that person is in front of you and they haven't, if they have not given you their consent, like get your grubby little fingers out of their energy field. Just no. And as a
Yep.
reader, it's exhausting if you try to reach too far. It's like being it just no. And in tarot cards, it's the same thing. Like if this reading isn't actually for you, I like as a reader, you'll pick up on it real fast. I think the danger is if you're reading for yourself and you're trying to actually like pick into somebody else's energy field, like you can find yourself really drained. And then you recently did my old opt-in to ask better questions. And in there, like I asked the question, I'm like, are you asking this for yourself or for someone else? Like, is this
Mm-hmm.
for you? Is this really for you? And I've seen some people who will take on the sort of like servant archetype role, or they'll book a reading, try
Mm.
to ask something on behalf of someone else. And I'm like, that does not work either. And the
No.
wires get so crossed and the energy is just not clear. And because
Yeah.
our energy is constantly shifting, it's like you can't expect good information to come from that. I'm like, what you need
No.
to do is, put on your adulting pants and like go have a conversation with that person. You want to be in a relationship with them? You need to freaking talk to them about your relationship.
So
If yeah,
there's that, and then there's also the piece of you can't want something for someone else more than they want it for themselves. I don't
that.
even remember where I heard this from. So this is not me not giving credit because I don't want to. I genuinely don't remember. But it was a thing of somebody talking about how they had a friend, and like I think the friend's mother was sick or something like that, and whoever the person was, they kept just really trying to send this healing energy to the mom.
Okay.
And the the mom's, daughter came back and was like, "Hey, um my mom is like, she knows you're trying to help, but she's really tired and she's ready to go. So she actually wants you to stop."
Mm,
So there was a point of like, not that this person wanted to die, but they were okay with letting things be what they were going to be. And so just the forcing of the inevitable in that way actually wasn't a benefit.
mhm. Yeah.
So it's so important to just be clear of like, am I doing this because I think this is the best thing for you, or because this is what you actually want?
I
Because
think
if
that I love that because I think it gets into this space of people needing to discern for themselves. I think, especially in our like exact time period we're in right now while we're recording this,
Mhm.
do you need therapy more than you need a reading right now?
Yeah. Well, yes. Yes. Because I mean, think about the whole piece of like, when you ask someone a question and they're like, well, I think. And I think there's a difference between somebody giving you their opinion because this is what they think you would want or would make you feel joy or whatever it is that you're seeking, as opposed to this is what they think is best for you. This is what they want for you. This is the version of you that they want to have come to fruition.
Yeah.
It's not the same. And so that level of discernment has to show up so that we're not imposing our will
Yeah.
when we do this. And so in my head, part of what's really important, you know, when I have pulled for other people is like, I'm not saying this because like I want this for you. If
Mm,
I want it for you, it's because I'm witnessing you wanting it for yourself so bad and having trouble achieving it or being able to claim it,
yeah.
but not because, oh no, you need to just not do this thing and go do this other thing instead. And
Yeah.
even if I'm reading for me, I don't want to pull cards for me and see something that is like, well, that don't seem like me at all. Like no version of me at all. Like he more healed, more evolved, no nothing. And being like, where's this coming from? And if there genuinely isn't a connection that comes up at any given point, days, weeks, months, whatever later, then I have to then be like, what version of myself was I trying to read for that
Mm,
I'm not? And so when you're reading for other people, I have to wonder, like, there is a point to where it's like, what version are you reading for that doesn't actually exist? Especially if it's somebody that you don't really know. This person is drunk and they just want a reading, and it's like, I really wish you were sober. Maybe they don't want to be sober. Maybe they shouldn't be sober. You don't know their life.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that has grown as a skill for me over the years as a reader is I feel very distinctly when I'm communing with my guides who will help translate things sometimes if I need it, and when the guides belong to somebody else.
Right.
And so many times in so many readings, even on the general readings that I do every week that get sent out through my newsletter. Um, like I'm always like thinking, like I'm always like focusing on who's reading this. I'm reading for them, and then we do the reading. And there's so many times that like the the information coming through me is like, this is the message. And then there'll be a guy and they're always like, hold up. They're not ready for that yet. They're not ready for that yet. And that
Right.
happens even in like regular meeting spaces or when in coaching spaces. And it's like, this person is not ready to hear this in this way right now, and it always gets delivered in this way that's like, tread gently, like, and if it's something that they absolutely cannot handle, it literally feels like I'm hitting like a curtain or a door or something, and
Yeah.
it's been shielded from me. I cannot see it. Um I'm very clairvoyant, and so like I'll see images and pictures and all kinds of stuff, and it's like I'm not allowed to see it. I'm not allowed to hear anything. I'm not allowed to see
Mm,
it. I'm not allowed to get more information, and they'll just cut me off from the information. And that's when I always know somebody has like a real big thing that's going on inside them. And that's when the conversation will start to
right.
shift into like, what kind of resources do you need right now? Well, how much you get those, and
Right.
and that's a become like a new way of also not overextending my energy. And I'll pay attention to
Oh.
myself in that way too, where I'm like, am I capable of handling more information right now? And a lot of times my guides are just like, and we're done.
So the hit that I got as you were saying that, I immediately got the vision of the specific tarot card, and I'm like, this sounds like High Priestess,
Yeah.
because it's like, nope, there's stuff that you can't see.
Yep.
And yet clearly this is coming from a place of being embodied and informed and
Yeah.
powerful and knowing, but also knowing that everything can't be shown, and a very clear um internal understanding of when, like, mm-mm,
Hmm.
mm-mm, like, that's the role
They're
that you're
just
kind of playing.
they're just not in the space of receiving that information right now. So for you to tell them something,
Right.
it is actually going to hurt more than it's going to help. And
Right.
and the amazing thing is how many times people, I think, in our modern day and age, we want these like huge leaps forward, and the information is given to you in like this tiny little pebble, and they're like, that's what you can handle today. And
That
I can see the size of the boulder, or and the person in front of me is like, give me more, and it's like, you get the pebble, like this is all you can handle today. You're gonna
yeah.
shut down and implode if you get more than that.
So the other piece though is going back to the whole question thing. I think when I've read for myself, I've been given so much information around just pulling a card just for insight into how you feel, or just pulling for the moon cycle, or the past, present, future, know, be, and do, like these standards. And so part of where I think I am evolving is trying to explore what it means to pull a spread and or pull until I get clarity with a specific question, but the specific question being more of the focus as opposed to like this spread or whatever the thing is.
Yeah, I actually don't do a lot of spreads anymore. Um, I just don't. I find that they're limiting. The
Right.
information is more organic than that. It doesn't want to be contained in that way.
That
Every week, just for simplicity's sake, in the readings that go out through my newsletter, I do a 3 card spread, but I don't do past, present, future. I always channel on like, what's the 3 part? I just, for some reason, 3 always feels good for me. So I'm like,
mhm.
what's the 3 part that we're thinking about? And sometimes it's like, what are we letting go of? What are we keeping? Like, what's the note from the universe? Like that was last week's. And um
See, my favorite is always know, be, and do. What do I need to know? What do I
I
need to
do
be
love
or
that.
embody? Or what is it now that I need to do and go take action with? So that's always been like I can't think straight. So this is what we're going to do.
Maybe I'll channel that for this week's reading. I'll do that one.
You're welcome.
But, but yeah, I do. I think getting out of other people's spreads is really powerful for your own developmental practice, because that is their thing, and to throw a
Yeah.
card and be like, that is the answer to this thing. I'm always like, that's a starting point. Like,
well, that's another thing. Anybody, in my opinion, any information that you take in, or anybody that is reading that does things in absolutes, run.
no, no.
Hard
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah. And I feel too that, like, if you feel like information's being held back from you and you're trying to dialogue with your reader and they are not giving it to you, they're always trying to get you to do the next thing, to come back for the next thing. I'm like, that is a hard cut off, hard stop, hard stop.
No.
I've had people ask me before, when I used to do like sort of the regular readings, and I would have people ask me, like, kind of like a prescription, and they're like, so how often should I come back? And I'm like, I'm not the chiropractor. Like, I hope
Right.
that you don't need me very often. Like, I'm of the type,
Right.
like, I hope you don't need me often. I enjoy, having readings on, say, my birthday or at major transition times of the year, but like,
Yes.
but like, for you to feel like you need regular counsel with me in order to move forward and make decisions, that is not this.
Now we're calling for this being a different type of emotional support. And now we need to maybe look at therapy or counseling or some different type of resource, because that's not what this is for. And if that's the case, so it's no different than, I know how to take my own temperature if I don't feel good.
Yeah.
But if something's wrong, I'm going to the doctor.
Yeah.
And so you can go and get readings when you feel like you need more. But like, if there is nothing that says, I want to pick up my cards, I want to throw my dice, I want to read my playing cards and do some cartomancy, whatever the things are, like whatever your practice is, if you only practice because somebody else practiced for you, there's a limitation, especially if you put so much weight on this to have done all the things for you. It's not going to do it. It is going to be like, girl, I cannot eat your food, work you out, and make you look snatched in this dress all at one time. That's not how this works. That's not how this works.
Oh, yeah, I do feel like, for the energies flowing through people out there where they're just like looking for shortcuts, you'll see it in any industry in any way. You and I are coaches in the business space. We see it there, where they're like, just like, you give me the magic marketing formula, and it's like, it doesn't exist. And the same thing's true in metaphysics, where it's like the magic answer doesn't exist, and you still have to become the CEO of your life. And
because you're looking for something outside that you have all the answers to. You come to anybody for you are my friend, and we sitting somewhere and you just asked me to pull a card. Guess what? I'm pulling based on you.
Yeah.
I am pulling based on your proximity to me, and maybe something you said, or energy that's coming off of you, a look in your face. What did you order? Whatever.
Yeah.
It's not because this is what I am not your magic.
No, I am not your Tropicana orange. You're not going to tap me with a straw and like suck all the juice out of me, like the old commercial. You're not going to do it. And I've made so many changes in my life over the last few years to make sure that doesn't happen, because for a long time it was happening. People would literally demand readings out of me, and I had no boundaries, and I was like, okay. And I was like, growth moment, and I'm like, I could go to so many readers, and I'm like, what should I do? And it's like a very human action of saying the word no.
There's a little thing on the wall in my salon that I work in, and it says, you are not an avocado. You cannot make everyone happy. I don't even eat avocado, and I understood exactly what they were saying.
I love avocados. I also love that meme going around right now where they're like, it's always a wooden ball. Like, don't you think you can change up the toy in the middle? I was like, dang, avocados are having a rough season too.
See? Put something else in here, please. Yeah. Because people are trying to outsource the actions and the solutions and the processing. And that's just not how it works. And so part of what I feel like I'm hearing consistently is whether you're pulling for yourself, pulling for someone you know, someone you don't know, larger group, smaller group,
Yeah.
it's that understanding and that awareness that this is a moment in time, this is a snapshot,
Yeah.
and you cannot outsource the experience to someone else. You cannot outsource the processing to anyone else,
No,
and nobody else is your magic. It's just
no,
not how this works.
nobody, nothing. Which gets into practical things,
Hmm.
shuffles, spreads. We talked about spreads. Um, there's like trendy things going on right now. I
There's
feel like the
always
last
something where
few
it's like,
years.
stop.
Yeah, the confirmation clarity cards has been a big one. The mega decks are showing up now where people are combining multiple decks and reading from them. I'm like, whatever way, it's cool. Like whatever way, it's cool.
the, the 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 challenge is never whether or not any of these things are right or wrong. It's when they become prescribed as your new thing. This is the thing that will change your entire practice.
Mm.
This is how you can charge big bucks for it. This is how I became rich reading, and you can too. Your face. Huh? That.
I had a session with an astrologer. That's at least 2 years ago, maybe three now. Um, and she and I ended up hanging out online for like way longer than my reading because she's like, "Oh, you're like a different kind of reader, but you're like a reader." And we were swapping business notes on how hard it is to run
Mm.
a reading based business. Like you anybody who's pumping out readings, like I see some people doing, I'm like, there's either something missing or it's not true. And,
You're
and
giving people what they want and not what
yeah,
they need. I don't
yeah,
want to be, I don't want to be the the shitty McDonald's, even though those two words go together, for multiple reasons. But
sausage
like,
fudge McMuffins.
but that whole like, it's supposed to be good for you, but it's gonna give you high blood pressure and high cholesterol. It's like,
Yeah, no,
let's not be the thing that actually was not for you. That's
no,
not what
no.
you need. And so that whole thing, like if you're, I look at it as any other healing professional. If
Yeah,
I am not coming from an ethical place of wanting you to receive what is for your highest good in this moment, what the fuck am I doing?
yeah. I've noticed a shift in some readers. Some of them got real big during the COVID times. And there's one in particular who I used to love. I loved his readings. And lately I was like, oh no, you shifted. Like he's exhausted by the community
Mm.
for one thing. And everything is really just about like getting people into paid programs. And I can tell from his readings, he just pulls cards. And I'm like, you can pull the whole deck? You want to pull the whole deck for me? Like, is this a picture book that we're looking at here?
Unless you are specifically doing a Lenormand spread where you are supposed to be pulling like all 36 cards. What are we doing?
It's yeah. So I think to your point about the experience you had, you described earlier, I think that we need to be looking for people who are explaining things to us. Your reader should be able to tell you more about where they're getting the information from.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much wrapped up in this medium. And it's like sometimes the simplest thing is just like, there's information coming to me on this. But to explain, like, okay, this is like, I'll say this regularly. I'm like, this is an intuitive read. This is not a literal read. Here's what's coming through right now.
Right.
But like, there's times where things are jumping off the cards, and it's like, it's the numerology of the card, or it's the choice of colors that the artist used in the cards, or it's the literal old fashioned card meaning of the card, or it's the
Right.
seat that it comes from, but like it should be a journey you take together, and it's not just information like dumped at you. And
No, no.
yeah,
So to give the example, and I don't know how many times I'm going to probably use this card. Like, I don't know. It's not my favorite card, but it makes other people weirded out. And it does not. It's the tower. So I've pulled the tower countless cards, and it the tower always shows up for me as a gift.
Yeah.
And this is my Biddy Everyday Tarot deck. So in the book that I'm reading,
Yeah.
where you give me a reading, one of the things that she mentions to she's not a big fan of memorization, but she's like, to an extent, you need to have an ease of knowing what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that she says is to take a deck of cards, to put a sticky note on the back of the card with one word on it. She's like, if you really twist my arm, you can do two, but one. And so
Yeah.
I wrote down release. So I did this so that the cards that I have a harder time with, like the moon, I have always struggled with the moon. I see this, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
where the tower, even though I put release as the word for this,
Yeah.
I know that when I see it, there is likely something that is coming that you need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
That this is likely a warning and actually in your benefit. There is something that is coming to a culmination, and it could come in a loud, uncouth kind of way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
pay
Yeah.
attention to it. But the star is on the other side. So
Yeah.
this is not the dark night of the soul where you'll never get out again. And so I understand that. But me trying to get to that point of like, okay, when not the chariot, because I know what the chariot is. Seven of
Oh my
Pentacles.
God.
It's like, wait, what? It's your what? Is that your life path? Did you say that?
No, I said I'm pulling my
Oh,
tower. I found it.
I was
Uh,
getting ready to say, I was like, wait, that's my life path card. But anyway,
no, mine, my life path card is, well, I'm a master number 22-4. So my base life path is the Emperor because it's 4.
mine, I think, I think mine is it's the chariot, and then it's the tower. And
Oh,
then and then I think astrologically is the hermit.
oh, Astro for me is the Sun and Strength because I'm Leo.
Yeah, see, Virgo.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just me trying. I'm trying to learn what they mean so that I can formulate the narrative as I'm going through, but also
Yeah.
trusting that, like, here's the thing, so I can be like, this is this, this is this, this is this, and now I can take that out the way and
Yeah.
be able to actually see the whole picture. And I can
Well,
let whatever is there come through because I'm not
yeah.
overthinking what the fuck does this card mean?
Well, you have to, the meaning has to be your meaning, right? Like,
Correct.
I feel like because of our unique life experiences, which is why we prefer certain card readers over others, why
Yes,
certain people do our hair over others, right? Like
absolutely.
there's a reason for it. And you can put 10 readers in a room and ask them to dissect. I found my tower in this. I have the star spinner out here on my deck or my desk today. And so this is what the tower looks like on this deck.
Okay.
And you'll get like mostly the same answers because the tower is about transformation and new beginnings, but you're also going to get a lot of nuanced differences, and it's completely related to like how we relate to the world. So like for me, I'm always like, well, in order for the new structure to go up, the old one has to come down. And like I routinely give the analogy for the tower, because I used to live in Los Angeles for years and years and years, and I would have these stupid commutes, and I would sit in my car and I would try to avoid the 405 freeway, so I would snake through the canyon roads, but you end up sitting
Right.
in traffic anyways. And land there is so precious that people will buy old houses that were built, mid-century but crappy build, like not the nice ones. Then
Right.
they'll buy lots, and in order to have a house that functions properly, they will demolish the one that is existing on the lot and then put a whole new building up on it. And
So
so you drive by these all the time.
it's sitting on like a thing like that. So I pulled this out of True Heart deck, which was what
Oh,
I
it's
had, which
beautiful.
clearly looks very different than the other one I was holding, and it looks different from the one that you were holding.
I love that. Oh,
Every
here, I'll hold mine up so that people can see the difference.
every
Oh,
every
artwork.
deck,
Yeah.
every deck I have, the tower always has nuances to it.
always. And it's really beautiful. You know, the traditional, very, very traditional Rider-Waite Smith has people falling out of the tower. Um,
Yes.
there's a tarot reader that I love who always says, you know, who says they're falling? What if they jumped because they knew it was time they finally had to go? And it's
And
like,
you don't know what's down there. They might actually have a softer landing to jump than if
mhm,
they stayed in the burning building.
yeah,
And
I
I
would like
feel
to,
like
yeah.
there's always like something you look at. Like this one's got white fluffy clouds on it. So if you're the person that really pulls apart the imagery, it's not all horrible and it's not all doom and gloom. And the reality is that if you're in a building and the building's on fire, you're safer out of the building than you are in the building.
I love relating things back to real life things that can be
Mm-hmm.
conceptualized. And, you know, I love to think the tower in terms of demolition. And it's like the
Yes.
tower to me has just, it's always up on like a hill or something. And I'm like, you don't just
Yeah.
knock it down. You've got to take it down piece by piece so that, you know, you can
I don't think
actually
that
get the
that's a
thing.
card with urgency in it.
No,
I
but a lot of
don't,
people treat it like urgency because of
they
the emotions.
do.
But that's the
And
dichotomy of the card is like you're feeling the feels and yet also at the same time, both and it's not like, oh my God, everything's gonna come down right now. You know,
no, I don't find that this is one of those cards of like, you're going to do a reading and go home and like the
which
wife, the kid, the
fun.
dog is gone and your house to burn down and everything is gone. Like it's not a bad country song type of card. You out crying in the rain in in your 10-gallon hat because every you know
Oh God,
it's
that's a great visual. That is such a great
like
visual.
I don't think that that's what this card is. I don't think that this card is about everything is awful and it's going to fall apart right now. I
No,
think that
I,
the gift of the tower is
yeah.
it's giving a certain amount of warning. It's giving you some like, you in danger, Molly. Like it's trying to warn you.
Oh, I think that's so interesting because I never get warning in the tower. Tower for me is so much about this like self-acceptance and accepting
Mm,
the inevitable and becoming comfortable with it. So I don't have the deck on my desk right now, but I read a lot from Tarot of Mystical Moments. And in her tower card, the figure is lovingly embracing the tower and the smoke is the hair. Like it's a gorgeous card. So you are one with
mm.
the tower. And I feel like in a more modern interpretation, that's exactly where it's at. It's like accepting things like the reader who described the people on the traditional Rider-Waite Smith as falling out of the tower. He's like, what if they're like willingly making an action and leaving and jumping? Like this thing is falling. It's a house of cards that's falling, and I'm going to make a choice right now. And I'm like, it denotes a certain amount of responsibility and action and acceptance and um
I'm
in
gonna try
neither
to.
in neither way is better or worse in interpretation. It's like as a
No.
reader, you attract the people who need more of that urgency. And I definitely attract the people who are in this sort of different space of like making a change. And but everyone who's ever had the tower come up over and over, like it will persist with them for a while. You know, there's a journey.
So I pulled out The Muse by Chris Ann, and again, the tower looks completely different.
Oh, that
And
is
it's
so cool. I
so
love it.
this one, it's almost like, but what if the tower is me?
Yeah.
What if I am what needs to not be in the same exact shape and form that it has been? What do I need to shed? What do I need to let go of? What
You know what
dark soul of the night am I
I
experiencing?
love in your card you have a jolt of lightning, and I only have one deck on my desk here. All my cards sit stuff out in the living room,
Mm,
which is why I'm not grabbing them. Um, but this deck and Star Spinner also has a bolt of lightning. And I just feel it's like
okay.
that shock of like the world delivers you a
Yep.
change, a jolt. It's like boom. And I think that is what people feel when they feel the tower, they feel the jolt. And
Yes.
it's disarming and it's
Yes.
not comfortable. And it's like, whoa. But a lot of times you get the jolt because you've been asleep at the wheel for a little while and like it's time to wake up.
That. And so don't get me wrong, nothing about it is gentle necessarily.
No.
But I feel like this is one of those cards similar to Death or the Devil that people automatically are like, "Oh, it's terrible. It may," and it's like, again, it's
Mm.
not. it's very rarely just the card by itself. There's context. So what else is happening around the card? Like, did you pull a card before? Did you pull a card after it? Is there another one over top of it? Is there another one under, you know, what else is happening with this?
Yeah.
Or if you're talking about this in reference to a specific situation, I can think of one of the times in particular where I had pulled it, and I don't remember what else came up in the spread. I just remember that it came up at a time to where the specific this one specific group that I was in,
Mm.
it was time to go. It was time to go. It had been toxic. It had a lot of foolishness with it. And there was a lot of foolishness to come. And so it was trying to tell me, get out of this thing
Yeah.
before it burns down with you in it.
Yeah.
And so that's where I feel like that warning piece comes up, not in just the giving you the warning, but like it's giving you a choice as to whether or not you want to be one of the people jumping out or if you want to stay in as it crumbles.
Right, right.
And so I do think choice comes up as well.
Okay, I've got one final thing
Yes.
for you because I just looked at the clock and I was like, I think I hit record quite a while ago. To read reversals or not to read reversals, how do you personally feel about reversals?
I do read reversals. So I am not against pulling a card reversed and being like, I don't know if this is completely accurate here, and taking the uh, leave of being like, no, I don't know if this is completely accurate this way.
Right.
And I actually often read them the way that I learned from Biddy Tarot, which was either too much energy, like whatever the card is, too much, too little, blocked energy, or like a overabundance or lack of that energy.
Yeah.
So that tends to more or less be what it is. Of course, there's the is the imagery literally upside down? Um, is there something about when you are looking at it that upside down looks very different than if it was right side up,
Mm.
or whether or not let's say it's like the page of swords.
Yeah.
Is the page running from the hierophant on the card before it? So
Yes.
the
Direction.
way,
Mhm.
yeah, the literal directions of it.
Mhm.
But I feel like when it's reversed, it's so I do shuffle my decks to have reversals in them. I
Yeah.
feel like it's a bit of a little bonus
Mm.
if you are available for it, which is where I say if you really just can't, that's where the turning it over and you're like, not today, not today. Whether you can't read it or the person you're pulling for can't receive it. But I do think that the reversals can actually it can sometimes gift you a little extra insight.
Yeah.
What
I
about you?
hustle a reversal reader.
Okay.
Um,
I know people
I
are so divided with that. I find that fascinating.
Really fascinating, right? There are some tarot readers that I follow in the tarot space who absolutely do not read reversals, and not unequivocally, but they just don't. One of them in particular is extremely gifted, and I never mind that he never reads reversals. Just like that was a great reading. Bravo.
Mm-hmm.
And but overall, like for me personally as a reader, I feel like reversals give us more data. And since I focus my readings on business and entrepreneurship and I read for them. I'm like, we are all about data. So don't you want more data? Yes. Yes, we do. And I feel like
Right.
reversals for me. So because I channel the Akashic records when I'm reading tarot, I feel very much like the images, like they animate for me and move for me, and the cards are interacting. And there are times when reversed cards literally feel like they're spinning,
Mm.
and there are times where the reversal feels more powerful than the upright would be because of an action that needs to be taken. There are some people who say that
Hmm.
certain cards are better in the reversed aspect, like a Five of Cups situation. I don't prescribe to that. I'm just like, it's
Right.
just more data. It's just more data. But I also do pay attention to the way figures will interact with each other on cards. And they will, I feel like they literally have dialogue with each other, and I pay attention to the direction they're moving. And sometimes a card needs to be in reverse to show you what way the energy is headed. But the
Yes.
root meaning of the card is telling you something, and that's where like the nuance comes into play. But there is a deck that I read for years from, and I keep it. I've never given it away or retired it entirely. It's by Zach Wong, in it's called Revelations Tarot, and he drew the artwork so that there is an upright, and then the artwork kind of meshes in the middle, and then in the reverse you get the figure again doing like whatever action. So it really
Yes.
helps train your brain for when you're reading reversals to expect something there. And I feel like as you
Mm-hmm.
get to know cards or your deck better, you can tap into the reversals better.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily just an opposite of whatever the upright is. And that's where I think people get kind of wigged out by it. Like, I got to memorize double the things. And it's like, no,
No,
necessarily, not
I
necessarily.
don't think so. And like I can use the example of Ten of Swords, which is another one that people get freaked out about. I actually don't, because I feel like that's telling you like it's probably not going to get any worse. It sucked getting here,
Well,
but
it
you
can't. Like 10 is the
the
completion.
culmination,
The
right?
hard
And
part is always in the nine. The nine is where the shit happens. And when you get to the 10, it's
right,
like, now I can breathe. And
right.
yeah,
So when I see a Ten of Swords, first of all, when I see the card, it's already like, okay, what's the other card in front of and behind it? Because clearly
yeah,
you're about done whatever this cycle is.
yeah,
But also that's a card where when I see it reversed, it's also telling me that um there's, not that I think that the Ten of Swords is like good, but like the swords at that point look like they're falling out. So it can also let you know that there's like, okay, some of it literally is,
yeah.
it's really going away. It's
Yeah.
really getting to the point that like if the knife is out of the wound, then the wound can be triaged to then heal. We can
It's
figure
so
out what's
interesting
next.
because whenever the Ten of Swords shows up reversed in readings for me, I so often feel like the person's in denial about the ending. It's when people are kind of to the pain.
Mm.
And it's like, no, really, you can let go. You can
See,
let
to
go.
me, that almost, and it's funny because I think of Modern Witch and it makes me think that there are people that are so stuck in the pain. Cause like in that deck, she's on the phone
Uh-huh.
and the swords are in it. So it almost is like, are you so enmeshed in the situation that you aren't even noticing that some of the most painful
The
parts are coming
dopamine
to an
of the
end?
crap is more precious than like healing.
And that's part of where I'm like, what else is happening around it?
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a, again, there's context, there's what comes up for me when cards show up, like what's, and again, this is that if I am processing a card, what do I tend to know to be true
Yeah.
in theory with this card? But a person isn't a theory, I'm not a theory, and so it's what happens next. And so the whole point of me having those go-to's with that, you know, if I see the Fool, it's like you starting something, or there's this energy of blah, like it makes me think of like Pee Wee Herman, just like la 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 la, like, like there's just this energy, and you know, it's just like nothing can go wrong, even if it can, it's fine.
Yeah.
And so I know I have that to go to,
Yeah.
but that may or may not be accurate with the other cards, based on the question you gave me, based on the question I asked,
Yeah.
or what else, you know what I mean? Like these things don't happen in a vacuum. And that's
Mhm.
where I think the real piece of it comes up with anything that we've talked about. This doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Oh, that's the perfect concluding sentence. No, nothing happens in a vacuum.
That
Something
part.
tells me we'll be pulling out more cards in the
Yes,
future.
please. Yes, please.
Thank you for hopping on. Um,
Of
yeah,
course.
we'll be back soon with more.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I think this was our tarot chat that was overdue, so that was fun.
This was awesome. I love this.
Okay, I will see you later, my friend.
Bye.
Bye.